So looking at your work, okay, there's like you've got the right idea going on, but I think first of all, um, you could easily create a little bit more form in your object. Like right now, what I see is just like this. So what right now what I see is this is a separate object, and I kind of like that idea that this is separate. So I would accent that. Um, And so what I would do is, let me just do this. I'm just going to clone this. I'm going to grab this here, like so. All right. And then what I'm going to do is I would actually transform that to be a little bit bigger. And that way it also overlaps the scene and makes it look a lot more dominant. Um, and then what I would do is I would actually lower it and make it bigger. So by lowering it, what you can do then is actually create, um, what I would do is actually create like uh, the waterfalls. Like an example would be, like it's this water level is lower, and your teeth here basically are sucking the water down. So you'd have to, you'd have to get this waterfall motion of the water coming down here, and I think that's going to accent your object a lot more. The other aspect is I think you need to work on your form a little bit more before you go any further with this. And what I mean by form is if I've got if I'm going to draw the lines, so like this here, and then eyeball, and then this comes here. Now, what you want to do is you want to start creating some overlap. So this eyeball is going to come down like so, and then create more form. And then I think this eyeball would be a little bit more hidden, like that, and it wouldn't be as diagonal. Like you've got this diagonal mesh. Get more of like rounded because it's curving around the form, and that's really I think what you want to work on is getting that form down. And so the way I would do it is, like you've got good eye form here, get that eye ridge here, same thing as you've got there, and then push this eye out. Same thing if you got this eye over here and it comes up, same thing comes up over here. Get that form going on, and that silhouette's going to really push that aspect of your the depth in your face. The second thing I would say is everything, and this might be something you want to do, but it's looking at it is you want to always create a foreground, background, middle ground layer. The problem with this is that you have separate elements all over the place, and that's going to cause you, so like I've got one element here, I've got the main element here, and then I've got just these little pieces back here. So what I would do instead is to make this a little bit more dynamic as far as the idea of your whole. Um, what I would do is, and without like redoing the composition too much, I would put in maybe the the ship a little bit closer, something like this, to give a sense of dynamic, like it's actually going to go in the mouth. That's the first thing I would do. The second thing I would do is, I mean, without doing a complete perspective change, if I were to do this, I would actually um, do more of a dramatic pose. So what I would do is I would have my ship here, like so, and then the big mouth coming open like this. But that's just, changing the composition without doing all of that. I would put your ship down here, like so, make it look a lot more like in peril, And then what I would do is layer your landscapes. So like you've got this here going on, but then put something in maybe the background to give the idea of like this is close to civilization. You know, maybe even just a little lighthouse type of thing. Um, and that way you'll have with that lighthouse probably put over here. So um, you could put the lighthouse in there like it's got a reef, you know, and most of that stuff is built over, you know, like on rocks and stuff like that. So put that in there, and I think that's going to really help triangulate your position. And then the other thing is get atmospheric perspective in there. And so what I mean by that is going back to your original, what I would do is lighten up that like this, and then grab this for your lighthouse and put this in there as a little bit more solidified. But getting that atmospheric perspective in there is really going to push your foreground background. The other thing too is I would saturate your colors a little bit more. Um, Basically putting in more of your what's here, more saturated tones in probably this range here. So what I would do is grab that head and just kind of like this, and hue saturation, and if just by upping that saturation of those colors, it pushes that head forward a little bit more too. And then, you know, the desaturated colors towards the back. Also layer the colors more. Um, so what I would do is get your darks down like this, and then your whites are going to push forward a little bit more, or your more saturated colors. So get those in there, and that's going to give you a little bit more layered effect. And then as you get back here, what I would also do is also just add in a little bit more saturation um, to the trees up here, and then fade the saturation in the back, and that's going to push and pull your foreground background. So those are big things that I would probably do with um, your whole scene here. Let's see here, just grab this. Oops, there we go. You know, I would grab something like that, and I think that's a lot more dramatic and dynamic um, than the existing composition that you have. It's a lot more danger, and it's not really changing everything out. The other thing too is you might want to do some sort of like backwash from the mouth. Um, I like the idea that it's, you know, violent waves, but it's one of the things you want to do is, you know, I would put that trailing, a little bit more trail and stuff like that in there. Um, and then don't be afraid to actually go a little bit darker here inside the mouth. And then if you want to do something weird, you know, if you go a little bit darker, you can put a couple of lights on the ship, like you know, something to just give it a little bit of accent, and you know, like lanterns or something like that. Or, and that's kind of an odd thing. I mean, it's not that big a deal. Or if you want to really accent like the mouth, you could do something where, you know, it's the incandescence. You know, something like your blues in there, light up the mouth. You know, and that's going to give you a much more focal point, or even create that, you know, shape here, things like that. So those are just some ideas as far as, you know, pushing in your direction a little bit more. All right, I hope you helps you out